Today we are coming to the last part of the story Three Questions by Leo Tolstoy. If you remember, in the previous class we had discussed how the Tsar had attended on the wounded man. A bearded wounded man had come running through the forest. He had fallen unconscious on the ground. The Tsar and the hermit had nursed his wound, bandaged it and washed it with water, and ultimately when the flow of blood had stopped, they had carried him into the hut and placed him on the bed. The Tsar himself had become very exhausted after such a grueling day. It was grueling because he had walked on foot, he had worked throughout the day, he had attended on the wounded man. He fell fast asleep. When he woke up, he saw that the wounded man was looking at him, and he did not understand why the bearded man asked him to forgive him. "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for," the Tsar said. The Tsar said that he had seen the man for the first time in his life and he had nothing to forgive him for. We are starting from that point. What did the man answer? "You do not know me, but I know you. I am that enemy of yours who sought to revenge himself on you because you executed his brother and seized his property." The man told the Tsar that he was an arch enemy of the Tsar. An arch enemy, that means a terrible enemy. Why? Why was the man an enemy of the Tsar? Because this man's brother had been executed by the Tsar. To execute means to give the death sentence to Mrityudandadeva. The Tsar had his brother executed and his property had been seized. Seize means to confiscate. Bajayapta kora. His brother's property had also been seized. Most probably, his brother had been accused of treason. The Bengali of treason is Rajodroh, rebellion against the king. That's why the man wanted to take revenge. He wanted to avenge his brother's death. Bhai mrityu pratishod nirjeshil. And he swore. The word swore is the past form of swear. The word swear means to take an oath. Shapat neha. He had taken an oath that he would avenge the death of his brother. "I knew you had gone alone to see the hermit." The man had kept a watch on the Tsar, and he had noticed that the Tsar was always surrounded by his bodyguards. But that day he noticed the Tsar had went to the hermit alone, leaving his bodyguard behind. So that was a golden opportunity for the man to take revenge. "And I resolved to kill you on your way back." And the man was waiting for the Tsar. When the Tsar would return from the hermit's cottage, he would kill him. The man was hiding. But the day passed and you did not return. But the man waited for long. The Tsar did not return. We know why the Tsar had not returned. Because the Tsar had been digging the ground in front of the hermit's cottage. "So I came out from my ambush to find you." Ambush. The word ambush means a hiding place. Lukonor jayega. He had come out of his hiding place to find the Tsar, and I came upon your bodyguard. To come upon means to meet suddenly. The man suddenly met not the Tsar but the Tsar's bodyguard. The Tsar's bodyguard was also waiting for the Tsar, and they recognized me. The bodyguards immediately recognized the man. The Tsar did not know the man, but the bodyguards knew him. The bodyguards knew that the man was an enemy of the Tsar because his brother had been killed by the Tsar, or his brother had been sentenced to death by the Tsar. "I came upon your bodyguards," it should be bodyguards, not guard, "and they recognized me and wounded me." The bodyguards of the Tsar pounced upon the man, tried to kill him, could not kill him but wounded him. I escaped from them but should have bled to death. bled. It is the past participle form of bleed. To bleed means blood coming out. That is called bleeding. The man would have bled to death. That means he was losing so much of blood that he would immediately die, but should have bled to death, had not you dressed my wound. The man was saved by the Tsar. The Tsar had saved the man's life by attending on him, by bandaging his wound. I wish to kill you, and you have saved my life. Now the man has been totally changed. Why has the man been totally changed? Because he had come to kill the Tsar, but the Tsar had saved his life. Now the man was grateful to the Tsar. Now, if you wish it, I will serve you as your most faithful slave, and order my sons do the same. Now the man who had been an arch enemy of the Tsar had become his friend. He wanted to serve the Tsar as a slave. Slave means a servant who has been bought, Kritodar. Here it means the man wants to say that he would be very loyal to the Tsar. What is meant by the term loyal? The term loyal means he would be very much respectful to the Tsar, love him, and never betray him. He would be his most faithful slave, he would be very loyal to him, and he would also ask his sons to be loyal servants of the Tsar. Forgive me. And the man asked for the Tsar's forgiveness. The Tsar was very glad to have made peace with his enemy so easily. To have made peace. To make peace means to bury the hatchet. To bury the hatchet is an idiom. It means to put an end to quarrel. দ্বন্দ্বের অবসান ঘটানো. So the Tsar was very happy that he had been able to bury the hatchet so easily and to have gained his enemy for a friend. The man was his enemy, now he has become his friend. He has gained him as his friend. Not only forgave him, but said he would order his servants and his own physician, but said he would send his servants and his own physician to attend him. Physician means doctor. The Tsar was very happy that the enemy had become his friend. So he said he reciprocated. তিনিও প্রতিদান দিলেন. How did the Tsar reciprocate? The Tsar reciprocated by promising that he would send his servants to bring the man to his palace. He would also send his own doctor to attend on him, because a doctor will treat him better, and promised to restore his property. If you remember, the man's property had been seized, confiscated, বাজেয়াপ্ত হয়েছিল. Now the Tsar promised to restore his property. What is meant by the term restore? To restore means to give back. His property would be given back to him. Having taken leave of the wounded man, the Tsar went out into the porch. Porch means the empty area in front of the hut, and looked around for the hermit. Now the Tsar wanted to leave for his palace, but before leaving, he wanted to ask for the answers to his questions. Before going away, he wished once more to beg an answer to the questions he had put. To beg means to request. He would finally request the hermit to give answers to his question. The hermit was outside on his knees, sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before. This question may be asked: what was the hermit doing when the Tsar went to take leave of him? তার কাছ থেকে বিদায় নেওয়ার জন্য যখন গেলেন তখন হারমিট কি করছিলেন? আর একটা কোয়েশ্চেন হচ্ছে, what was the hermit doing when the Tsar approached him for the first time? At that time he was digging the ground. Now what was the hermit doing? He was sowing seeds. What is meant by the term sow? The word sow means to plant. He was planting seeds in the beds that the Tsar had dug the previous day. The Tsar approached him and said, "For the last time I pray you to answer my questions, wise man." The Tsar went to the hermit and requested him for the last time to give answers to his questions. And what did the hermit reply? "You have already been answered," said the hermit. "You have already been answered." The hermit said that he had already given answers to his questions, still crouching on his thin legs and looking up at the Tsar who stood before him. The Tsar was crouching on the ground. He was on the ground and his hands and legs were drawn towards his body because he was sowing seeds in the bed. And the hermit gave a strange answer. He told the Tsar that he had already given answers to his 3 questions. "How answered? What do you mean?" asked the Tsar. The Tsar was astonished because he had asked these questions many times, but the hermit had not answered anything. And now the hermit says that he had already given answers to his questions. Now the hermit explained. It will be a 100-word question. How did the hermit explain the answers to the Tsar? "Do you not see," replied the hermit, "if you had not pitied my weakness yesterday and had not dug those beds for me but had gone your way, that man would have attacked you and you would have repented of not having stayed with me." The hermit then explained. What was the explanation of the hermit? He said, "If you had not pitied my weakness," the word pity means to show sympathy. If the Tsar had not shown sympathy to the hermit, if he had not dug the ground for him, if he had gone back, what would have happened? The enemy was waiting for the Tsar. He would have killed him. And the Tsar would have repented his action. Repent means to express grief. Anutap kara. In that case, he would have repented his action. So, if you remember the first question, what is the most important time? So the most important time was when you were digging the beds. And I was the most important man. This was the answer to the second question. And to do me good was your most important business. In this way, the Tsar answered the questions. In the first case, when the Tsar helped the hermit and stayed on by digging the ground, what was the answer to the first question? What was the first question? What is the most important time? The most important time was when the Tsar was digging the beds because it saved his life. And the second question, who the most important person was? At that time, the most important person was the hermit because he was helping the hermit. And if you remember the third question, what was the third question? What is the most important thing to do? At that time, the most important thing to do was to help the hermit. Then he gave another example. Afterwards, when that man ran to us, the most important time was when you were attending to him. For if you had not bound up his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. In the second case, when the wounded man came and fell unconscious on the ground, what was the most important time? The most important time was when the Tsar was attending on the man. That was the most important time. Why? Because if the Tsar had not attended on the man, if he had not dressed his wound, the man would have died and he would never have an enemy as his friend. And who was the most important man? So he was the most important man. The bearded man was the most important man at that time. And what was the most important thing to do? And what you did for him was your most important business. At that time, helping the wounded man was the most important thing to do. In this way, the hermit gave 2 examples and gave the answers. But you understand that this is not the appropriate answer. In that case, it is a general answer, but we need some answer which would be applicable in all cases. Now the hermit gives that answer. Remember then, there is only one time that is important now. What is the most important time according to the hermit? The most important time is the present. Vartaman Kal. Why? It is the most important time because it is the only time when we have any power. Why is present the most important time? Not the past, not the future. Because present is the time when we have some control over it. We have no control over the past. We have no control over the future. We cannot change the past. We cannot see the future. We can do something at present. That is why this is the answer to the first question. What is the most important time? The present. It is the most important time. And the second question, who is the most important people? The most necessary man is he with whom you are. For no man knows whether he will ever have dealing with anyone else. This is the answer to the second question. Who is the most important man? The most important man is the one with whom I am dealing, with whom I am having some business. In this case, you, the students are the most important people to me, and to you, I am the most important man. Because I am dealing with you, you are dealing with me. And no one knows whether he will have dealing with anyone else. We don't know the future. The uncertainty of future is like this. I don't know whether I will have any dealings with anyone in future. You don't know whether you will have any dealings with anyone in future. So the most important man is the one with whom I am dealing. And the most important affair is to do him good. Because for that purpose alone was man sent into this life. What is the most important thing to do? The most important thing to do is to help others. Because according to the hermit, man has been sent to this earth to help others. I had told you that this story is a parable, a story with a moral. Actually, with the help of parables, great men explain the great principles of life, the values of life. Here, actually, through this parable, Tolstoy is telling us the most important principle of Christianity. What is the most important principle of Christianity? খ্রিস্ট ধর্মের মূল বিষয়টা কি? The main principle of Christianity is to help others. Help your neighbor or love your neighbor as yourself. This is one of the 10 commandments. Moses got 10 commandments. Moses 10টা commandment পেয়েছিলেন। তার মধ্যে একটা হচ্ছে love your neighbor as yourself. So that is the principle of Christianity. So with the help of this parable, Tolstoy is actually preaching. He is telling us about the principle of Christianity. He who helps others is helping God. Service to man is service to God. This is the principle of Christianity, and this principle of Christianity has been expounded by Tolstoy through this short parable-like story. We have finished the story. I will send you questions, the 100-word questions also. But first, go through this video and try to understand it. Thank you.